social media. So I'm just going to call him War, I think. And he's going to talk to us about the stories that might bring a wider perspective. So, War, are there other natural disaster events that are happening right now that we should be made or be aware of while all the attention is in Florida currently?
So yes, that's a great question. So I'm just someone who kind of studies this stuff and looks around the world with what's going on. I'll range from anything from earthquakes to hurricanes to these fires that are going on. But yet, there's two big things that have drawn my attention. That Louisiana started about last week. There was a fire there that was consumed 15,000 acres, and it was showing that it was 65% contained, but it ended up changing. It's now over 30,000 acres have been consumed, and it's only 50% contained. And then there's another fire that is right beside it that is also growing to over 8,500 today, and it's 50% contained. And the other one that we started breaking onto my TikTok platform that I was showing people is, so I follow flights, and one of the flights showed a lot of trying to put out a fire that was not being shown that it started, and that's one right outside of Portland, Oregon. It's right outside of Sandy. And that location, you saw a good half a dozen to a dozen that were coming in trying to put out this fire. But what's strange to me is on the maps, it's showing that that fire as of today is 1,600 acres and it's 0% contained. So there's a lot of fires that are going on now. This is something I've been trying to study. Has this regularly been going on in the world or not? Or is this just something now that so many people are viewing this stuff? They're now showing on these platforms, and it's now being like, oh, wow, but it may have been something regular that's gone on. So I do know that in Louisiana, I've been told that they have about 700 fires a year that break out. But as for this month, I was told that it is just 400 fires a month. So that's a shocking thing is that. But yeah, that's kind of the other thing that I'm looking at right now besides this hurricane.
War, your TikTok platform is very, very impressive. Very, very impressive. I have to ask you, in April, I'm going to throw a quote at you now. In April 1997, United States Secretary of Defense William Cohen declared that there are terrorists at work and, I quote, are engaging even in eco-type of terrorism whereby they can alter the climate, set off earthquakes, volcanoes remotely through the use of electromagnetic waves. So 2 questions I have. Would you call him a conspiracy theorist? And what do you say to the citizen, the everyday person who can't help but notice that nothing seems normal or usual when it comes to our weather today?
That is actually a very good question. And I do get onto that into my platform. So I never give anybody what exactly, what they should or should not believe. I just provide them with evidence of things. And if they want to believe that type of stuff, they are more than welcome to. In fact, there is evidence of where HARP has worked. I can't remember the website, but I will search it right when I get done talking. But there is a website to where you can actually see HARP being used. And I'm sure that's something y'all have talked about before, but that is a form of weather control. There's that. There is also where people are now talking about direct energy weapons. And that has been used before. Now, it's not on the scale of where they show these direct energy weapons into causing harms like this fire in Maui, but there is a facility in Maui that's called AFRL, and that is one location, and the other one is in Arizona. But there is, you can actually go to their website and they literally have listed their direct energy, and they walk people about how this is used. Now, the direct energy that the military has shown out of those videos has been where they might strike a truck, and it's a hole that is about the size of two fists going through. Generally, what they show that it's used for is taking drones out of the sky. So they'll sit there at a distance and they'll shine the laser on it. They'll take it down. But yeah, so for those type of topics, I will never tell someone that, oh, shame on you for believing in that, or you're a conspiracy theory. In fact, I don't even like really saying conspiracy theory. I leave it as just a theory because there's factual evidence to why someone may believe the way they do. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, I
Yes,
think
it
so.
does.
Yeah, I believe so. And I appreciate that viewpoint that you take, because we've noticed that conspiracy candy is a thing that propagandists and governments, and even, I would wager, social media companies, probably at the behest of others, are engaging in. It feels to me, when I look into the zeitgeist of the media, that that there are certain quote unquote, conspiracies that are promoted by the primary systems, the primary powers that be, if you will. And I think that has become problematic for, us information and truth seekers, information, data, and truth and wisdom seekers, because it can mislead us or divide us. But at the same time, you're pointing out that, wait a minute, it is a theory. It doesn't necessarily need to be a conspiracy, and we all know that I think it's become common knowledge that this has been a weaponized term that was deployed by the Central Intelligence Agency after people did not take on the immediate belief in the justification of Lee Harvey Oswald and JFK. So I think we're at a new point in information seeking, in newsing, and in analyzing open source information. So I just want to let you know that, we really appreciate the way that you go about this. And the fact that people, want to tell you that you can or can't talk about directed energy weapons is ludicrous, like so many other topics. Because you can, as you pointed out, you can even go to Lockheed Martin's website and find video footage of them using these things. And many people think that it's just completely not even real when it's right there openly in our faces.
Yeah. Yeah. So for instance, a lot of one side kind of pushes it to acting like they don't believe this stuff as much. But even a place of CNN has sat here and done a report on direct energy weapons. I believe it was 2014 that they did the study of the Navy ship. I can't remember the name of the ship, but even them, they showed that they were using direct energy weapons. But yes, you're right. There should be nothing wrong with talking about this stuff. You should not be scolded for whatever you want to decide to believe in. And I do hate that. I do wish that people were able to see the most truth, and then they can go home and do their homework. Instead, sadly, a lot of media shoves something into your face and tells you what you should believe, then tells you the story, and then concludes with saying, again, what you should believe, instead of telling you, hey, here's the story. What do you think about this?
Great words. War Deadpool on TikTok. I saw you were talking about recycling centers, War, something that didn't even occur to me. I don't know anything about. So if you could touch upon that. And also, what has you right now with this latest spate of all these weather cataclysms, as I like to call them? What's making you scratch your head right now in disbelief?
It's really not things are actually causing me in a disbelief. To answer that question, some of this stuff, I wonder if it's the media has grown now to where people have a phone in their hands and they're recording this stuff and they're uploading it. So you're seeing a lot more attention. For instance, the train derailments. A lot of people was like, oh my gosh, this is happening just about every other day. But when you actually pull the numbers on train derailments, this was no different. This year was no different than 20 years ago. And it's been happening regularly. In fact, if you actually look at those numbers health-wise, it started to get better. I can't remember the exact date, but maybe a decade ago, it started to actually get better with the health and safety into it. But you do see a lot of this being shoved in our faces now. And could it be something? You're always free to make that thought. But it could also be that some of these things are regular and we're now just seeing it a lot. And the stories that I'm focusing on, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, War. I was just going to jump in with there seems to be a lot of fear mongering going on with the media constantly. Just this morning from crack of dawn, I'm here in New York City, 4 a.m. They started full coverage. The hurricane, we can all agree we have to be prepared. We have to know what's going on. But they just seem to grab onto that to get everybody nervous, on edge, and they don't let go of that. And I think we can all agree it's about web traffic, clicks and likes. In the meantime, the work you do, bringing out truths or bringing out videos, people can just judge for themselves. Watch this. Here are the facts. Here's what's going on. You judge, you analyze, I think is so perfect. So thank you for doing this.
Yeah, you're welcome. And thank you for saying that. One thing about this hurricane, one thing that's kind of being buzzed around is people are saying, wow, eventually this is going to be the year that a Category 6 takes place. Well, according to, I forget the scale, the proper name, but it's a SS scale, Simpson scale of what category makes a hurricane. And when you reach 157, it can go literally to 200. It still stays a Category 5. Why? Because it's based upon the destruction level. Once you reach 5, you're talking about flattening stuff in the eye, in that path. That's what it's going to do. So if something's 200 miles an hour, there's no reason to sit here and call it a Category 7. Furthermore, if they ever did make a Category 6, that would bother me because I know what the scale was placed for. And I will go back to something, and I hope that anybody who's listening understands that back in 1935, I believe it was in the Keys of Florida. I know it was definitely Florida, but 1935, there was a hurricane that reached the speeds of 200 miles an hour. It's still just a Category 5. It should always be that, but they may try to make this a Category 6 because why? They want people to have more of a fear that, oh my gosh, things are getting worse in the world. And it's really not. These things have been going on for a long time, even before the dawn of, in BC times. There's catastrophic events that have happened way back in the past that, are still going on. This stuff is not really wow, the world's coming to an end type feeling. And I hate it for when people feel that way. So I do exactly what you say. When I see the fear getting into people, I really hone in to trying to calm them down to where they can see the picture for themselves and they can decide what path they want to believe in after that.
We love it. We absolutely love it. And we appreciate what you're doing. We have friends and colleagues who appreciate what you're doing, that even live in some of these areas that you've been reporting on. So your steady work there, keeping people calm is really important. And we know that federal governments right now, global governments, if you prefer, are really excited about strategy of tension. They want us to be at each other's throats. They want us to be in a state of hyper fear for extended amounts of time, leveraging our fight or flight human nature. So, accounts like yours are super important. And War, we want to thank you. That's at War Deadpool on TikTok. And thank you for joining us, War, here on State of the Nation on TNT Radio.
Pervoy Morich on TNT Radio.
A former Mexican congressman is convicted after misgendering transgender.